All right, I think we are live. Hey, General, how are you, my friend? Let me uh, pull this keyboard up some. Let me make sure everybody can hear me. If you can hear me, can you just give me a thumbs up in the chat? Make sure you guys can hear me. All right. All right, cool. All right. So first off, I appreciate you guys joining me. It's been a minute. Adric, what's going on, brother? It's been a minute, man, since we've live streamed. So I'm excited to do this. I got to keep this stream to about an hour, though, because we got stuff on the agenda, my wife and I. So cool. All right, good. Everybody can hear me. So, man, listen, I wanted to focus on Squid Game today. And I'm not sure how many of you all have seen it. If you haven't seen it, then you definitely have to check it out because it is good. It's crazy good. So a couple of things I wanted to do. I wanted to talk about some theories, and then if you've seen it, get your ideas about what you thought about the show, and then just some of my thoughts about the show and why I think the show was so good. Like I think it's good for reasons that people are not necessarily talking about. Well, I shouldn't say that because a lot of people are talking about these reasons, but it's more. There's a lot going on with Squid Games. I feel like to uh, to unpack. So, spoilers ahead. By the way, if you've not seen it, you might want to think about it. Um, so, I got you, General. Okay, well, cool. I'm glad that you were able to be here today. All right, so Squid Game. So you guys know the Squid Game is a show on Netflix. You may have seen it, you may not have seen it, but at one point, I believe it was the number one show in the world, and it's still trending as number one on a lot of different places. And I think it's still Netflix most popular show. As a matter of fact, I think that it is Netflix most popular show of all time so far. Now, you think about that with all of the shows that you have seen. Squid Game is coming in as Netflix most popular show, which to me is crazy impressive. But um, what I love about Squid Game is the story, right? Now a lot of people are saying that Squid Game is really just a, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people are saying Squid Game is really just a hybrid, right? Like a cross between um between Hunger Games and Saw, which is completely not true in my opinion, if you've seen it. So, just a quick synopsis of the show. You guys know that there are some folks that are involved in this game. In this game, you can win a lot of money, and all of them have all of these right pressing different situations that they're going through by which they really need that money. So that's how they've all kind of fell into this place where they played where they're playing this game. And you know that the game can only have one winner, and you also know that the consequences of this game is death. If you lose, you will die. So that setup right there to me is interesting. And then how they rolled this story out is what I really loved about it. But I don't know if you all knew that Squid Game has been 10 years in the making. So for people who are saying that it's kind of rip off to some other things, it's been 10 years in the making because the director, I got his name, I wrote his name down here. He's actually writer and director. Man, I know I'm gonna get this wrong, but I think it's Hong Dang. It's a Yuck. I don't know if the H is silent or not. Was the writer and director, and yeah, man, what's going on, Jones? It's been a minute. So yeah, so he was writer and director of Squid Game, and he couldn't get it. He couldn't get the thing produced. He said for 10 years he tried to get it produced, but no one would take it because people thought that the concept was too bizarre and people thought that it may be a little bit too violent for what was going on at the time. But then he said that I guess like now people are much more willing to I guess allow something like this because of where we are. But the thing about Squid Game is this: even though it, I mean, not gonna try and say that it's not violent because some of the people in there, man, they go in some of the worst ways. But the story of Squid Game to me is what's real interesting. And now people have like a whole bunch of theories, right, that are going on with this show about what this means and what that means. I'm going to get into some of those theories from my point of view, but the story of this to me was absolutely amazing. I'm just curious how many people, hey, Envy, wow, a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time. Man, let me just pause and say it's just nice to be able to be back on the stream. It's been like forever. And a lot of you guys know the story. I'm sidetracking here. We'll get back to Squid Game in a minute, but a lot of you guys know the story that my wife and I moved in with my parents. This is where I am now, actually in their basement. And we're selling our condo. So I haven't been able to stream. I haven't been able to do a lot of stuff. It's just been so crazy. And we're still actually in the midst of moving, but we're close to getting it all tied up. All right. So let me just say all of that and then back to Squid Game. So no, I can't, General. There can only be one. There can only be one winner. And if you when you get through it, well, technically there can only be one winner. I mean, you can forfeit the game if everybody agrees that they don't want to play, you can forfeit the game, but that's it. So here's the thing about Squid Game and the different characters in this show that I thought was interesting too, which also makes the show pretty good, how they all have their different motivations for doing what they're doing. But the crazy thing about it is what people will do for the right amount of money. And it just makes you think about that, because you yourself might think that I would never do this. I would never do that. But they say everybody has a price. That's what they say. And this show is interesting because it shows just what people would do for the right amount of money. But it also is interesting because you see all of the different characters in this and their motivation for this show and why they're there. And that's what makes it interesting when you follow all of these stories. Also, when you see the arc of some of the characters in this show too, where they started from the beginning of the season and where they are in season one. Well, most of them are not anywhere because most of them are dead by the end of season one. But there's so many different things to look at in the show. So I think Jinhan, I'm not sure where Jinhan is. He said that he might be here and he might not be able to make it. So I'm not sure if he's going to be able to make it or not. So we'll have to see if he pops up. But I know he's seen it though. I know he's seen it. So yeah. So Jones is saying there's he couldn't do the glass bridge challenge. So there's a couple of things that are interesting. So the main character to me is really interesting because when you watch his arc, like when you notice how he is in the beginning of the show, he's kind of, I wouldn't call him lazy, but he's not very responsible. And when you watch that change from where he is there to where he is at the end, and we know he's in the game because he needs money. He needs money because his mom is dying. We know that. So that's why he enters the game. So we see him and why he enters the game. Then we find out some other people enter the game for various reasons. They need money as well, but they're all there for different reasons. Now, here's the thing to me about this show that's kind of crazy. So they're playing the game, and I think on what, the second or third episode, the rule is that if everybody doesn't want to play anymore, that's a clause. You can opt out and you don't have to play. So they all go. They all choose to leave the game, which makes sense because they've just seen a whole bunch of people die. And they all choose to leave the game, but they all come back. And that's crazy to me. Because now you know that if you lose, you are going to die. There's no question about it. But these people take a chance for all of that money, which, you ask yourself that question, would you do that for all of that money? Would you take that chance? But the tripped out part about this too is that there are some couples that come back and play the game again. There's a man and his wife that are playing this game knowing that one of them, if one was to win, the other would have to die. And that's just the way that it is. And that's crazy to me. And that to me is crazy how they all go back in. But it's also interesting to see what happens with people with character in this game. And I want to read his name. I actually wrote it down here. Let me see. Because he was real interesting to me because you couldn't trust him. Um, where is he? I put my glasses on, you guys. I can't see this. Hold on. There we go. That's better. I think it's Jang Duoks or Deoks is his character. He's a real smart guy. He's a real smart guy that basically you could see his decency erode when he got back in and he was starting to play the game. He's the guy that helped the Indian guy that didn't have any money or anything like that when they were outside of the game. He helped feed him. And you could see then that, okay, this is a decent guy. But it's interesting to watch his character as the game unfolds. And his character arose too, to the point where he basically is just straight like sacrificing people, lying about how they can get through the game just to better himself. So those are the types of things with Squid Game to me that are interesting. Like to look at all of those parts of this show, that's what makes this show really interesting to watch. And really that's what this show is about. It's about relationships and choices. Some people, I guess, classify this show as a horror show. It's not even close to a horror show to me, not at all. I would not say, but it does examine people in their relationships, the human condition, and what you would do for a certain amount of money is definitely examined for this. Now, the character that I just mentioned, his character is interesting too, and this is the smart guy. He was like, I guess, the child of the town, the one that was going to be successful, the one that was everybody when they looked at him, he was the one that had all the answers, made all the decisions, and all of that good stuff. But what's interesting about his character is that I think that I'm not sure how much he believed that about himself. Let me put it that way. Because people were always giving him these props. And I think he knows he was smart, but I'm not sure how much he believed that he was the caliber person that they thought he was. As a matter of fact, I don't think he did think that because he knew how he was within himself. And everybody else did not realize that. Everybody did not realize that this guy will throw you under the bus to get what he needs. So, and it's crazy because when you think about that, like you think, at least these are the things that were going through my head when I watched the show. Like, do I have friends like that? Or have I known people like that who you think are decent people, but when they turned up the heat, they turned out to be, cutthroat. They were going to do what they do. They were going to do what they needed to do to win. Now, and Josh was saying that guy was smart, but his decision making was poor, or he couldn't, or he just didn't have luck in that area. So, okay, yeah, I mean he was smart, but I don't know. I don't know that his decision making was well. Yeah, he probably was poor because he got himself in that debt. It was a whole bunch of debt. But even outside of that, man, like I mean, what kind of person? What kind of person was he to come back and play? Now I get it. You owe a whole bunch of people, and I think that maybe people were after him trying to collect the money. But you were out of the game. You couldn't figure out any other way to work this out. None. So your decision is to come back into the game, and basically you are going to try and win at the sacrifice of everyone else. And that's to me is something that everybody in that game carries that weight on their shoulders. Even the lead character in this, I think is it no, that's the girl. What's his name? Lead character's name. It's not I wanted to call him Sabiok. It's not Sabiok. That's the girl. What's his name? If someone knows his name, put his name in the comments because I can't remember his name. Yeah, that's a character that cheated Ali and with the marbles. Oh, Seong. I think Segong or Seong is his name. So even that character, which is the main character, which we all had an idea that he likely was not going to die, but he's a character that we look at as being pretty decent, right, in this show. But everybody in that show has an element of cutthroatness to them because they went back to that game and they knew that there could only be one winner. So For me at first, when I was looking at this show, I was thinking, man, like who in here would I root for? Who in here do do I really like? And I hope they make it through. But it's crazy when you're even thinking about that, because as soon as you start thinking about that or leaning towards one person making it through, you're automatically saying that the rest of these folks are going to need to die. And so what I love with what they did with this show was how they have all these characters in there with all these motivations. They make them very, very likable. They make these characters likable. They do a good job of developing these characters to the extent that you connect with them. And they also do a good job developing even some of the characters that make you sick, but they balance them out enough such that you resonate with them. So they do a really good job of giving us all that in this show and having these characters in these dire situations, which I thought was fantastic. I also thought that another element of this show that I think is really interesting are the folks that are working in the show, the guys in the red suits. The costume design was fantastic in this, by the way. But everybody in this is working some kind of angle or is in some kind of pressure. Now we know we have some of those guys, a handful of those guys that were harvesting body parts and selling that. But even those guys being there, even though we don't have much background about them, we don't know how they got there, but you get the idea that they're there because of the promise of some money. But even them being there tells you something, because they had to agree to the rules. And we know what happens when you take that mask off. When you take that mask off, you die. The front man said that. So what makes you agree to something like that? Like, what makes these people agree to those things? Or is it the money? Maybe it's the money. Maybe, like they said, everybody can be bought. And it was a lot of money. But you're killing people to get the money. And what does that say about you as an individual? So those are the types of things when we talk about Squid Game, to me, that are interesting. Like peeling back all of those different aspects of it is just really, really fascinating. And then just to see the dissent with some people, but the innocence with others. Like what's his name? I don't know what his real name is, but I mean, I don't know what his name is in the show, but the Indian guy in the show, who he was the only Indian guy in the show. He was the only non-Korean in the show. But his character is interesting as well, because he's there. He's not from Korea. So he's really kind of like a fish out of water in the sense that he's there. He's just trying to make money. He's just trying to get his family going. And he's trusting to a fault, trusting to his own death, really, with how he was tricked in a Marvel game, which was really sad. But, you saw that coming. But I was hoping for some kind of twist. I really was, man. I was hoping that something was going to happen and things would flip and the other guy was going to get it, but it didn't. And man, when you just see that, like when you see him walk back and he looks at those, what he thinks are marbles in the bag, and finds that they're rocks and understands that he's been betrayed, it's just like, man, your heart sinks, man, when you see that. And that's why they didn't show it to us, because they knew we were going to have a rough time with that. We heard the gunfire, but they didn't show us when he got killed. But man, that's crazy. As a matter of fact, the camera goes to the other guy who cheated them. I'm sorry, you guys, I cannot remember his name. And they show him flinch when the shot goes off. But at this point, he is just resolved to do what he has to do to get out of there. And I'm just liking this guy more and more at this point too. Now, I want to share something with you, a theory with you all. Now, so there's been a lot of theories on Reddit. If you go to Reddit and you look at the forums, a lot of people are talking about the shows in different pockets all over the internet. There's a Facebook group, they're everywhere. But on Reddit, there's a theory about the old man, 001. Now, the theory is that he was never truly in danger. At this point, we know, right? We know that this guy was running the whole game. He was controlling everything. We're going to talk about that too, kind of the haves and the have-nots. We're going to get into that too. But he was running everything. So the theory is, people were saying, well, he was never really in any danger. He was never really in any true danger because they knew who he was. And what people are saying is that, for example, with the Marvel game, that's why he did what he did because he knew that he wasn't in any danger. And at the end, he kind of gives I think Samu, he gives him, I think that Samu is his name, the main character, kind of his blessing, tells him it's okay. It's okay, it's my time, it's done, it's okay. And he walks away, and then we assume that he gets shot. But people were saying that he was never in any real trouble. And one of the reasons, the theory is, one of the reasons that he did that, or that they did that, is so that he would not have to go to the next challenge, which was the glass challenge, them walking across the glass challenge, because technically he's dead at that point. Now, here's why that theory doesn't work for me. A couple of reasons why. Because there were some challenges that he did where I'm not sure that he had control over whether or not he got hurt. Now, for some of the games he did, like when they were playing the game where they had to carve out the stuff with the with the pen, the cookie game, I don't know what you call it. When they were playing red light, green light, all those games are games that they can control for him getting hurt for. Maybe the one theory was the red light, green light. The reason that he didn't get shot at all was because the scanner never picked him up. Somehow the scanner always passed him over. So even if he did move, it wasn't going to pick him up. I don't really buy that theory. I think he just did well at the game. He just didn't move, so he didn't get shot. But there were some games where, yeah, they could control for him getting hurt. But there's one game where they could not necessarily control for him getting hurt without really giving things away. And that was that tug of war. And he did play that game. So when he played that tug of war, it is very possible that they could have lost that game had that strategy not worked, and he would have went off of that bridge too. So my point in saying that is this. I think to some extent, he was really playing these games. There was that potential that he could get hurt. And I feel like he had nothing to lose because he had a brain tumor, or he knew that he was dying. So he was like legit playing the games. Now, some other people have theorized, again, that they were protecting him all the way through, with the scene when they're all in the barracks, and there have been nights of fighting, right? Groups literally taking out each other. And he has that one scene where he climbs all the way to the top and he yells to them about stop this madness, or stop this, or stop that. And immediately when that happens, the other guys come in and they stop it. So people are theorizing that that was a cue of them knowing who he was, knowing that if he said this was supposed to happen, you do it because he's the boss. But I don't think that's true either. And here's the reason why I say that. I say that because that was, I think, the second night of fighting that happened. But the first night of fighting, he was there. And all the people in there, all the folks that were playing the game, they didn't know who he was. So he very much could have gotten killed at that point in time because he was there, unless I missed something. I don't think I did, but he was there. So I think he was playing the game legit. I think that he and his friends were really just kind of gotten bored with other people playing, and I think he decided to play. So I just wanted to touch on those theories because I think that they're pretty interesting when you look at them. Also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the girls that were there, the two girls. What are their names? And one of them, I don't think she has much of an acting background. She used to be a model. She still is a model. I think Sabiak, that's her character. And I think her real name is Ho Juan Jung. Man, I'm butchering these names, I know. But I thought that her character was interesting too, and what happens between her and the two girls, and how one sacrifices herself for the other. Because I feel like at some point when they're moving through this game, like their perspective changes. And I feel like the one girl who sacrificed herself for Sabiat, after hearing her story, was like, I really have nothing to live for. And you just told me something really compelling, and you deserve to live for that. Now, some people were saying that's ridiculous. Like, who's going to do that? You don't even know that girl. And on top of that, she was not being very helpful or kind to you, and you're going to sacrifice yourself. Some people thought that was ridiculous. I actually thought that was a nice touch. So I thought that was interesting how that story played out too. And also, though, what happens to her at the end, I kind of had an idea that something was wrong when they got across that glass bridge and that glass broke. I didn't realize that she got impaled by that piece of glass. What I thought happened is that I thought the actual blast from the glass was causing her to lose her balance. So when she's falling back slowly, I'm thinking she's falling off the platform. But then later on, we find out what happens with her. And then we find out that she doesn't make it through. Now, here's one thing I don't understand. Somebody help me understand this. How in the world is well, what's his name? I keep is Sam Wu or Sam Wong. Why in the world, when you find out that she has been stabbed and she's mortally stabbed, she probably was going to die anyway. You know the dude is across the way and he's just asleep. You haven't taken him out. Why would you leave her and start banging on the door, talking about she's sick, she needs help, or she's hurt, she needs help, and not think that's going to wake dude up and he's going to come over there and take her out? Who didn't see that coming a mile away? I did, because I'm thinking to myself, what is he doing? What is he doing? The dude has already shown you that he's playing for keeps, and you're banging on the door with her incapacitated and him over there only sleep. I didn't understand that. I thought that was ridiculous. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna start taking some of the comments here. Want to highlight them, and then we'll keep on going. I agree that he was in for it. He was in for the fun, but also remember what he told 456 before he died. The game they bet on about that game they bet on about the drunk. Yeah. I mean, I do remember that too. What he said about kindness, and maybe that was part of his motivation for doing what he did. Really, the fact that people were ruthless and there was no genuine kindness in the world. I guess that was the message that he was trying to portray there. But I don't know. I mean, we see what happens there. We see that the lady who we think leaves the drunk on the side does actually come back and help the drunk. But at that point, the old man had died. Or we think the old man died before he actually sees that act of kindness. So I don't know. I think a whole bunch of stuff was going on there. I mean, since we talked about the old guy and his friends, since we're on that, those folks are crazy. But that's an interesting thing, because when you look at them, they literally set up a game where humans would die because they were bored. And that's crazy to me. But what I think is interesting about that, and this is where I feel like this show is pretty smart, because I feel like there's a lot of little messages like that. Now, I think that for me personally, that is a message expressing the dissatisfaction with wealth. And I think that was really well done. However, be it may be over the top. I mean, nobody's going to, hopefully people are not hunting people for sport, because they can, because they're wealthy. But it does show the dissatisfaction of wealth. And at some point, how money is never enough to make you truly happy. I don't want to sound like I don't know what the word I want here. You know what I mean? Like I'm pushing I was going to say a parable, but that's not what I want. Because you've heard that before too. Like, money is not the end all and be all of making you happy. But for most of us who have heard that, if you need money, you think to yourself, well, everybody talks about that. Everybody says that money is not the end all and be all of happiness. But I tell you, it sure would solve a lot of my problems. And that's where I think most of these people in this show was. But that's where it's interesting, right? That's where you get like that juxtaposition where you have these people that want this money because that money will solve a lot of their problems. Then you have these people who have all this money, but are still doing these outrageous things to feel any kind of fulfillment in life. And I think those two positions for me in the show are also fascinating to look at. So, I mean, the old man, he I don't even know how to talk about him, because he wasn't crazy, but he was really at his wit's end. But it goes to show you like the degree that a person will go to for meaning or satisfaction or to feel alive. Because I feel like the old man really put himself in harm's way, and he didn't have to. Had tons of different money. He had tons of money. So I think that that's really interesting too. So now let's pivot a little bit and talk about the front man, which is interesting because I think in season 2 we're going to find out more about the front man. I've heard mixed things about season 2. Some people, I thought I read something that it's official that we were going to get a season 2, but then I just read something earlier today that said that we don't know. if we're getting a season 2. If anyone has heard that we are getting a season 2, please put that in the chat and let us know, because I certainly hope so. I could not, given the success of this show, I would be dumbfounded if Netflix did not bring this back for season 2. But stranger things have happened with shows that have been on Netflix that we have loved and find out they're not coming back again. And then there have been shows that we've not loved and we found out they're coming back. So I don't know what's going on with the season 2, but we'll see about that. So yeah, I think that we might get a season 2. I don't know. I'm hoping so. But so let's talk about the front man. So the front man is interesting too. Now, I didn't see the twist coming about the front man being the police officer's brother. Some people said they saw that a mile away. I did not see that at all. Not at all. I was surprised by that. And then I was surprised to see who that was. I can't remember the actor's name, but we've seen him in G.I. Joe as well. So what's interesting about the front man is this, especially in relationship to his brother. Now, I'm curious to know whether or not you all think that he shot and killed his brother. I don't think that he shot and killed his brother. And I will tell you why. Because he knew when he looked down that whatever it was in his room, that escape hatch or whatever, and he looked up, he knew at that point that that was his brother. Now, his brother didn't know because the front man still had his mask on, but he knew at that point that that was his brother. And I believe that when he went to the island, that's one of the reasons why he said, I want to take him alive. And when he finally reaches him, when he shoots him, it doesn't look like it's a kill shot. It looks like it's actually a shot in the arm and he falls off the cliff. And I think the reason that you don't purposefully see his death is because he is not dead. So I'm not sure though. So now I'm curious though. Now I'm curious what they're going to do with him if they get to season 2. Like, is it going to be a situation where he goes after his brother to stop him doing what he's doing? Or will it be a situation where his brother will try and flip him? And plus, I want to know the backstory there. I want to know how his brother actually even got in that position, because from what I understand, when he looked in the book of the contestants, his brother was one of those contestants. So how does he go from contestant to front man? So that's what I'm curious about. So I hope they peel back that part of the story. Now I also want to know who's going to take the helm, right? Does the front man take the helm, or is someone else going to emerge as a leader in this whole ring that's going on? Because you're right. I think, General, you mentioned it. It's still going on, obviously, because we see at the end of the show, someone is playing this very same game that got San Juan. I know I'm saying that name wrong, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Got him in trouble from the beginning. We see someone playing that very same game. So it's still going on. And I'm dying to know what happens there. But what I suspect will happen in season 2 is I suspect, and I hope it's not all of season 2, but I suspect that we will get a lot of backstory from some of our characters that are still alive. And we may also get some backstory from some of our characters that are no longer alive and find out that they knew more of what was going on there than meets the eye. Now, there are some things that I want to ask you all about, because I don't understand. So the scene where Sabiok is giving her knife back, like, I don't understand why that happened. I don't understand who authorized that. I don't understand any of that. I mean, was that for her to take out certain people? And if so, why? And if that was the case, that some of these people were given weapons to take out certain people, maybe it happened from the folks that were in the red suits. I don't think it happened from the front man, because we see what happened with the front man when he found out that the game was being rigged for the doctor. He did not appreciate that. And that was the end of the road for the doctor. So I don't think he sanctioned that. But I'm wondering why she was given that. And if some of the red folks in there, the red suits, some of the red suits gave her that knife to take some people out, because I think they had their own thing going on. I think that those folks were all kind of betting on what was going to happen, probably betting amongst each other who would take who out. And that's what I think was happening there. But I'm not sure, because I feel like we didn't get anything really definitive about that. So I don't really know what was happening with that. So if anybody has any ideas about that, I'd appreciate that, because I think that's I'm a little fuzzy on that. All right, so let's talk about the moving across the glass platforms, which probably was one of the most interesting games that they played, just because that was a game where um, like a lot of people were going to be in trouble outside of the tug of war. You were going to get multiple people that that went with that game. So so here's what's interesting about the game going across the platform. You kind of knew that that was going to be the end of, oh man, I don't know this guy's name either. I have such a hard time pronouncing their names anyway. But the um I think she's player 070. That's the one that talks. Oh no. That's not her. Sorry, I take that back. That's I think Hamai Nyo is her name. She's the one that talked a whole bunch. She's the one that really got on your nerves, talked about how great she was, talked about how well she played the game. And Zhang Diak, I think, is the other character. That's the one that she actually ends up taking out. They actually end up going together. So that scene to me was fascinating because you wonder, right, what was going to happen with them, because it would have had to happen then, because that was the last game. So if they were going to go, or if he was going to go, it would have had to have happened then, because it couldn't have happened any other time. But I wasn't sure how they were going to do that. So I found that fascinating, with her just really basically kind of taking him out. She was fed up. She was done with him. So that scene to me, I really enjoyed, because that scene also had a lot of tension in it. And also how they ended that scene with the guy who apparently was a glass cutter, or I don't know what he was, but he was able to look and see what was tempered glass and what was not, what was regular glass. So I love the way that they actually did that scene. All right, let me see. Josh was making a comment about the knife. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So that explains it, because I was confused about what was going on with that. I wasn't sure, couldn't really piece that together too well. Another thing I want to talk about is the set design here, which to me was fantastic. The way that they built this world and the way that they designed it was absolutely amazing. And the set designer was talking about how they went through a lot of different iterations of designing the set to make it look certain ways, to have certain feels. And even a costume designer, we'll touch on that as well. She was talking about how she got her ideas for the costume also. But I love what they did here with the children's games, and how they designed it. I thought that was awesome. The use of color, the use of music, all of those things simulated what you would experience, or the types of things that you would experience if you were playing a child's game. So I thought that was done really well. So the world building in this was pretty good. I think that they did a really good job of capturing the playfulness of it. But it was fascinating, right? Because it was playful, but it was juxtaposed against something very dangerous. I mean, even deadly. And how they played off of those two things was really well done in this show. So I think from a production standpoint, I think that this show actually did a really good job here. I think that the set design, like I said, was good. It was grand. It was playful, and it felt unique when you watched it. Like when you watched them move into the game room, it felt unique. And how they had these different setups, right, for all of these different games, like the White Room when they were in there, how they set up the marble game, all these different things I thought was very well done to give this show a very unique feel. And that's how this show to me is different than like a Saw, which I've never seen before, but I know the concept of the Saw movies. Or that's how the show is even different from like a Hunger Games, because people compare them to those two shows and some other things like that. It had elements of it, but to me, it felt very different. It felt very different. And that's partly because of the storytelling as well. All right, let me pick up some more of these comments here. All right, General says, I like how they painted all the games they played previously on the walls. Yes, that was very cool, to remind everybody what they did every day before the next game. Yes, that's very cool. And one of the things that's interesting too about that, General, is that when you see how many people don't make it to the next game and those beds are removed, more and more games on the wall are revealed. And I noticed that almost at the end. So people were making comments about it too, but they were saying that it's almost like a picture walk of all the games that they've gone through, but you don't see them all when all of the beds were there. Speaking of the beds in the room too, they were talking about how they designed that room in tiers. So if you notice, like when you look, the beds are in tiers. They're not all in rows. There's like a lower row, then a row right above that, and a row right above that. So you can see everyone in there. And they said that they wanted it to feel like the people were almost objects, like they were almost inventory. And at one glance, you could see everybody. And that's why they stacked them the way that they did. So I thought all of those little details to me for Squid Game makes this show very, very good, and make this show to me a well thought out and a well produced work. And I feel like some people overlook that, especially you overlooked that if you were someone that was frustrated with maybe the voiceovers, or frustrated with having to read the text on screen if you did that, because I know that some people were talking about the performances not being that good. And I think the performances actually were pretty good. And there's not all of them were pretty good, but not all of them were great, but some of them, but most of them were pretty good. But I think that you might be jaded on the performances if you get sidetracked by things like, well, their lips are moving and it doesn't necessarily match what we're hearing on screen. If you let those things kind of get into your head, it can take away from enjoyment of what I think was a really solid performance. Let's see. Let me go back to Mayshu's comment, because I was going to bring this up. Maybe we'll bring it up early. Okay, so um, Mashu, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. But this is a good question. I'm trying to figure out why he colored his hair red. What does that symbolize? The red square in the beginning, um, or red helpers? Something to think about. So here's what I think about him coloring his head red, because I feel like red has multiple meanings in this show. But I do think that him coloring his head red was a symbol to me of vengeance. And some other people have said this online, like he's done, like that's a big transformation from his character. So you see what he looks like before he does all of that, before he meets the old man, and before the old man dies, and you see the big transformation that happens with him. So I think he colors his hair red because it's vengeance, it's anger, and I think it also symbolizes a big kind of like a big character, a big physical character arc for him, outside of just what we see in the show. But like visually, you can see that something's different, and you can see his attitude is different after that as well. In terms of the way that red is used in other parts of the show, I don't know. I feel like we're like when the guards are wearing red, to me it almost seems like a symbolism of fear, a symbolism of fear and control, because those are the guys holding the guns, those are the guys, taking lives, those are the guys telling them what to do. So that's what I think red symbolizes. I'd be curious to know what other folks think about that, but those are just some of my thoughts about that. Thank you for that comment, because that's good. I was actually going to touch on that, so thanks for bringing that up. All right, let's see what else we got here. Yeah, I agree with that too. The fact that they built the house with stairs was brilliant too. I mean, that's what I'm saying, man. There's so many different design elements in this show that are so good that I hope people appreciate about this. That they did build it that way, which makes it harder to navigate. It makes it harder to, if you were to get out of your room, it makes it confusing. All those different elements, I think, were really, really well done. All right. I think we looked at this one, General. Yep, we talked about that. Let me see. All right, Jones says, did he get off the plane at the end and go back into the game in season two? That's what I think. That's what I think. I think definitely he's going back. I don't. He did. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure he didn't get on the plane. If I'm wrong about that, somebody let me know. But he's going back. And again, I think again that symbolism of red is part of that, to show that he's angry and it's got to stop. And you saw what happened when he saw the other guy playing the game that got him involved in it, and he went over and told him, "No, you do not go." And I think that he's going back. Now, the interesting thing about him going back is this, because technically, we're not technically, actually, he is now one of the wealthy. He still has the majority of that money, even though he gave some of it away. But it's interesting because he doesn't adopt a different outlook. As a matter of fact, he's mad about what happens, even though he still does have some of the money. Before a long time, he wouldn't even spend the money because he couldn't believe all that he went through to get it. So he's interesting too because he's a wealthy person. I think also now that money might symbolize him having the resources to go back and do something about what's going on. So I definitely think he's going back. Now, whether he goes back in or not is something else. And I doubt that he would. I don't know how he would survive if he went back in. But I do think he's going back to do something about it. I definitely think that, Jones. Definitely. Yeah. So Joshua says the color of red too. He thinks that symbolizes how upset he might be. Yeah. Yeah. It probably symbolizes rage. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. And he's plenty of upset. All right. Mashu says, I'd like to know how the red people get recruited. They seem to be in a prison too. Yep. Very interesting observation. I would agree. Maybe they're prisoners that help out with the game to take some time off of their sentence. Maybe so. Maybe so. But I think this is a really good point because I don't think that they're not volunteers. They're either there because they have to be there or they're there because they have the promise of a lot of money too. It's one of those two things that are happening. And hopefully season 2 will get more of that because you're right. They're essentially they're the enforcers, but you get the sense that they're not that much different than those who are there playing the game, except for the fact that they're not playing a game where they can forfeit their lives. But they are in a situation where they have to follow rules. And if these rules are not followed, they will get killed. And we've seen that happen. So it's an interesting thing when you look at those two as well. When you look at the contestants of the game and those who are the rule enforcers, because there's not that much of a difference between them. And it's interesting because when the doctor is having a conversation, I think it was a doctor with the other guy, he said something. The guy that was in the red, he said something about we are the same. We are the same. So I don't think there's a whole bunch of difference between those two, except for maybe like what they're doing there. I really don't think there's a whole bunch of difference. That's a good point. Hey Keisha, I see your comment too. Let me see, my shoe. Did we cover this one? It's possible it was like those guys running the organ business had it organized so well such that it seems they were there since the building the place. Yeah, yeah. So I think that those guys, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on there that they kind of set up themselves, kind of almost like in a prison where you got a whole bunch of stuff going on that is not sanctioned by the guards, but the inmates just got a whole bunch of stuff going on. And it's interesting, right, too, because the front man knew about it. He was like, I don't care what you do. And that was basically when he got that lecture, though, about not giving people an upper hand in the game. So it's possible that they've been there from the beginning too. And you get the idea that this thing has been going on for a long time too. So all right, Keisha, was there an organ harvesting operation going on there as well? Like when the doctor put the liver, I think it was the liver, maybe the heart, I don't know, in the plastic bag or solution. Yeah, so we just talked about that, right, Keisha? Yeah, the guards were harvesting organs, and they were making money for it, and that's something that must have been going on. You're right, for a while, because the fact that they even had the mechanisms to do it, right? Because most of those bodies went into the furnace. So at some point, some way, there was some kind of adaptation, I would think, made to those devices because some of those bodies dropped and they went into like the morgue and that's where the doctor took out the parts. So I think that they formulated all of that. I think that all that stuff was formulated by them. And I think the front man knew about it, but he just didn't care. He was really about the game. So yeah, that's good. Jones says the next game should be basketball. Yeah. Yeah, that would be good. That'd be funny actually. See how they would, what kind of twist they would have with that. Or tag. The general saying tag. Hey, it's a kid's game. I don't know. That's a good question. So I wonder if the police ever showed up after the cops sent the message before getting killed. I don't know. It's a good question, and I would not be surprised though if the message did go out, if the police didn't know about it. I mean, when you have that level of wealth, I just would not be surprised if the police did not know about it. They may or they may not. That's a good question, but that's kind of a cliffhanger left for us for season two. But they probably will go out. They probably will come look for him, especially if that message does get through, and then they're not able to reach him again. They'll probably come look for him, and that's when I think that we'll figure out or we'll find that he is not dead. But even if they do come looking for him, remember that that message goes out. That message went out, and they were not on the island where the things were happening. So I'm not sure if, oh, he did send pictures. That's right, he did send pictures, but I don't know if with the information that he sent, he also sent the location because when he sent that stuff, he was not on the island where everything was happening. So, and I think that might be significant too. And Joshua was saying that he doesn't think the video messages went through or not. I can't remember. I have to go back and see if there was a low bar and that it did go through, but it might not have gone through because he still had the phone in his hand when he got shot, so it might not have gone through. Tag would be fun. Well, I'll let you play tag, Joshua. I'm gonna pass on anything in that whole arena because if I don't win, you know what's going to happen. Right. Oh, what's going on, Terrence? How are you, man? Hopefully all is well. I appreciate it, man. We don't have too much longer. We're only running about an hour today. I've got some things that got to get done after the stream is over. But hopefully all is well, man. I don't know if have you seen Squid Game? Have you checked it out yet? I'm curious to know what your thoughts are. Some of you guys are sick. Yeah, I guess that would be cool, General. Oh, so if that's the case, if there was no network and he was still tapping the button, then we just don't know, right? If that message went through or not. I don't know, man. I don't know. It'll be interesting though. It's a cliffhanger for sure. All right, so Terrence is answering that question. He said it didn't go through because the front man addressed it by saying the signal was bad, so the stuff didn't go through. Sometimes in life, a person wastes their time. Ah, okay. So there you go. So if that's the case, then that makes me think even more so that the brother is probably alive, and the front man somehow, some way, we'll find out if there's a season two, which I hope there will be. That he's gonna contact his brother, and I think his brother's gonna be at a crossroads. I think his brother's either gonna join the front man or somehow, some way oppose him. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, yeah. A lot of people like the main guy in the old man in Squid Game. A lot of people were surprised about the old man in Squid Game. Or what I want to know is how many of you all saw that twist coming with the old man? Some people said that around episode 5 there was a big tell that let you know that something was up with the old man, and that was when the police officer was looking in the book and he saw all of the participants in the game, but he noticed that the number, I think 001 wasn't there. I think it started with 002. And some people said that that was a sign to let you know that something was up with the old man. And then other people said also like something was going on with the old man. And I did think this, even though admittedly I didn't piece it together, but people were saying, well, this dude is way older than anyone else. And something's up about that. But I didn't put it together. But some people were theorizing that from the door they knew that the old man was in on it somehow. Yeah, it's funny. Terrence was just making a comment. I was trying to find it here so I could post it. Um, about not shooting his brother, but but he must have been making some bank. Well, we talked about that actually, Terrence, with when before you came on, because I feel like there's a lot of people in this show. Not to say, of course, that you would shoot your brother, but there's a lot of people in this show that got revealed. At what point was enough money enough to make them do some things that they thought that they would never do? And I said earlier on, like, it's crazy to me. There's a husband and wife in this game. They were playing the game together. At that point now that people are dying if they lose the game. You also know that there can likely only be one winner, and you're playing it with your wife. Like, yeah, I don't know about that. That's crazy. Yeah, I like the girl in the game too, General. I think you're probably talking about Saviak, the one who dies from that wound in her stomach. I was sad about that because I really wanted to see her make it. They did a good job of making her very likable too. Yeah, I didn't see it either, man. I did not see it either. I was surprised. I was surprised when they went up to the building and we saw that old man there. I was like, what? Yeah, I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. Wait, Envy, you saw that? You saw that? If you saw that coming, you're good. Because I didn't. Not in a million years. I didn't see it coming. Yeah, it was surprising, man. It was surprising. It was crazy. Like that was a heck of a twist. But as I said, now I wonder who's running the show, who's calling the shots, and I wonder if the front man will try and push to that position. Like I wonder where he like what do we do with him now? What's next for him? But something's going on because the game is still going on. Tara said, I would have been snapping next to get out of there. I would have been like, it's time to leave. I would have got shot. But you know what's crazy, man? Like we talked about it before, the people were out. They voted to be out. Everybody was gone except for four, which is an interesting thing because no one talked about this but there was earlier on in an episode where the guy said, I want to know what happened to the four people that didn't come back. And we don't get anything else after that line. So they might do something with that with season 2 as well. Because most of the people, like 90 something percent of the people who got out after seeing folks get killed, decided to come back and keep playing the game, except for four, which is crazy to me. That's crazy to me. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I was in that situation and you're talking about all that money, maybe I think differently. But I'd like to think not. That's crazy. It could have been Joshua. It could have been that the husband and wives were thinking, well, you know what, one of us will make it out, and that's good because one of us will have the money and do whatever it was that they were in there for. But the interesting thing about that, if that is the case, then well, no, that still makes sense. I was going to say that doesn't make a whole bunch of sense because there you see sometimes where people are trying to split them up, and they won't allow it to happen. But that still holds water. What you're saying, Joshua? Yeah, maybe so. Maybe that's. I mean, maybe that's what they were thinking. Look, we're at the end of our road. We need this money. One of us going to make it out and get the money and do whatever we need to do. So maybe one was willing. They're both willing to sacrifice for the other. I don't know. It's very possible. Yeah, man, that's what we were saying. They decided to come back for the money. Listen, you down and out, or or if you're in a lot of debt, or if you're in a situation where people are even threatening you, and you're talking about that type of money, I think there's a lot of people who think that they would never take the chance, would think twice. That's a lot of money, man. A lot of money. All right, you guys, listen, I gotta roll. I gotta get ready to get out of here, man. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. It's been so long since we've streamed. We definitely have to do it again. I did not put my review up for Bond, even though I thought it was just okay. It wasn't my favorite. I still like Casino Royale the best. I think they gave him a decent send off. So there, you guys have my quick summary of the last Bond movie, No Time to Die. I will be getting the review out for Foundation soon on Apple Plus TV. If you like sci-fi and you've not seen Foundation, please check it out because it is crazy good. A lot of people also ask me about C. I've still not been able to catch up on C. Just so much stuff, especially a lot of stuff coming out now as well too. And I am going to at some point try and start doing a movie news segment also when I can figure out how I'm going to work that into the schedule. So all right, everybody, man. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. I love you as always. And I will see you all on the next video. Appreciate you hanging out again. All right, everybody. Peace.